The Supreme Court heard the oral argument in Helix Energy Solutions v. Hewitt on Wednesday. The case is on employment law and overtime pay. Michael Hewitt, who made over $200,000 a year on a day rate, believes he is owed overtime by his previous employer, Helix Energy Solutions, as he worked 84 hours a week. During the argument, Supreme Court Justice Elena Kagan questioned the attorney for Helix Energy Solutions about the meaning of salary basis. Kagan said the definition of salary basis as described by the company was, quote, a clunker of a sentence.
I'm not sure I get it, Mr. Clement. So 601 sends you to 602 because 602 tells you what salary basis means. We can all agree on.
Okay, but can I just stop you to say?
Not
but
really.
It's okay.
So what does salary basis mean according to 602? And 602 is a clunker of a sentence, right? So you have to, read it pretty carefully. But there's this language here which says on a weekly or less frequent basis. And the question is, should we understand it the way I think Justice Sotomayor was understanding it, is the predetermined amount calculated on a weekly or less frequent basis, in which case he doesn't get it because his pay is calculated on a daily basis. Or does it mean something else? And if so, what else could it mean, given this language that's right here in Section 602 starting us off, that the predetermined amount should be on a weekly or less frequent basis?
So, Justice Kagan, the sort of frequency of the basis or week or is not modifying calculation, which is not a word that appears in 602 at all. It's modifying the word received, which happens to dovetail perfectly with the word in 601, which is paid on a salary basis.
Yeah, so I think that's what this depends on is what is the weekly basis modifying? Is it modifying the predetermined amount, or is it modifying the receipt? That seems right to me. Well, this is a clunker of a sentence, but I would think, given all the different ways that this regulation uses the idea of weekly basis, daily basis, et cetera, hourly basis, et cetera, that what this regulation is talking about is how is your pay calculated? Is it calculated on a daily basis? In which case, you can still be exempted because you can go to 604 and be exempted, but you don't fit under Section 604. So if a daily basis, you can be exempted under Section 604. 602 says it's an exemption for people whose pay is on a weekly basis, and you don't fit that either because Mr. Hewitt's pay is not on a weekly basis. So you're out of 602, you're out of 604, you're out.
So a funny thing happens when you go to 604, though, which is it has this phrase, may be computed on an hourly, daily, or shift basis. And so I think if you just look at 602 alone, received means received and not calculated or computed. But I think that inference is strongly supported. This is not an agency that didn't know how to use the words computed or calculated. They used that in 604. So I don't think it's a fight between whether on a weekly basis modifies predetermined amount or received. It's really their position requires you to stick an entirely different word in the sentence, which is calculated.
How often did he receive pay?
He received pay on a biweekly basis, so every other week.
And in that biweekly, how much was he, what was the minimum he would receive?
He knew he would receive, if he worked 2 weeks during that period, he knew he would receive at least $963 times 2. Yeah. And if he only worked one, he knew he'd receive $963. And the regulation is explicit, which I think also underscores that it's not